So, Maayan, I want to get into the TikTok conversation in a few minutes, but I want to begin with your story because I think it's the little bit that I know about it is intriguing and impressive and motivating. And so, when I look at you and I say, okay, here's somebody that's full of energy, full of passion, full of got a great work ethic, full of kindness, my mind goes to how did somebody like that end up homeless?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And really, it came through, I would say, a combination of poor financial education, just literally having no financial education growing up. I didn't understand money, I didn't understand paying taxes. And then also just really, I would say, bad decisions that I made in general, like in life. So, how I ended up homeless in the first place was me and my husband, who at the time, boyfriend, were living in Seattle, Washington, smoking a lot of weed, and making something called BHO, which is concentrated marijuana. So basically, we were taking butane and running it through the marijuana
Was
plant
that
or
legal?
the
By the way, was that legal at
so
all?
it the production of it wasn't legal, but we did both have our med cards. Back in the day,
Okay.
you could go to the doctor
I'm
and
not
say,
trying to bust you. I'm
yeah,
just wondering.
no,
Okay.
no, of course, no. So back in the day, you could get your medical card, which we did have. But this was kind of a very new thing that people had discovered they could make this concentrated, higher, THC marijuana product. And so we were making it outside of our house, which we thought was safe, but we had our door open, and kind of the backdraft from the wind outside would blow the excess butane into our house. And over months and months of time, it would just kind of slowly build up, and we were in this gas explosion. And so that was something that obviously we hadn't planned for.
Wait, so it like blew up, like the house
It
blew up.
so not like in the movies where it was like
Yeah.
a big fireball. It was much, much faster than any explosion I've seen in a movie. In a movie, it's taking several seconds. This was like less than a second of the entire concussive blast happening. So me and my husband both got burned, ended up going to the hospital, had hospital bills, had repairs on the house. So all the windows got blown out of the house. The roof got separated from the walls. So it didn't come off of the house, but there was this line all the way around the house that you could
Wow.
see. And had all these repairs. We didn't have renter's insurance, which again, just stupid. Didn't have any money saved, even though I'd been making pretty good money with my freelance copywriting, because I was young and invincible and just thought
Right.
I had the world in the palm of my hand. And that really stripped away all of the ego that I had for me, kind of for the rest of my life. I think once you blow yourself up, it's very hard to think that you're oh so great and above anyone else. And so that really led to a journey for me of just working on myself internally, because I realized a lot of the confidence that I thought I had was not true, deeply earned confidence.
Wow. Like that, I can't even imagine that happening to somebody. How long did that? I mean, so obviously you weren't homeless immediately. It took some time, and then I'm assuming, man, we just didn't have the money. You guys just didn't have the money to pay for things, and so then
So
you
it
ended
was
up
almost a decision, I would say, to be
really,
homeless.
really okay.
Yeah. So I think that our landlord, he was a really, really nice guy. I think he would have worked with us, but during the period of kind of of mental and physical recovery, I lost all my work doing copywriting, because that really relied on me maintaining those relationships
Mhm.
actively. And during that time, when I would go to the hospital every day to visit my husband, who was in kind of the ICU unit for a while, I really didn't care about work. I cared about,
Mhm.
you know, not being dead and being grateful and like helping my husband and supporting him through like a very painful recovery. So we got back to our rental house afterwards. Luckily, my husband's dad, his kind of family are contractors and builders, and they kind of helped us fix up the house. And we borrowed some money from them to do that. But then we owed money to his family. We didn't
Mhm.
have income coming in anymore, because I've always kind of been the sole income provider. Um, and it didn't make sense for us to stay in a rental that was $1,400 a month. So I
Mhm.
said, you know what? Let's buy an RV and we'll live in the RV and just kind of be homeless in an RV. It's not going to be that bad, is what I thought in my head. I've always been, I'd say, overly optimistic to a fault, but also to some benefit and gain. And so we went from Seattle down to California, where I dropped out of college, because I knew that that was a place where we could be homeless, use the school's resources, and kind of rebuild our life from there. So it was definitely a decision, but something that I don't think I really predicted how it would work out, and how being far away from our family support system would have its increased challenges. So there were periods of time when we were down there where we didn't eat anything for 24 to 30 hours at a time, and we're just like really hungry to the point where our stomachs would hurt really bad. But we did have hope around the fact that we could go into the school's library, do research on the computers all day, have like a pretty nice place to relax and be in air conditioning. And we had our dogs with us. So that always was a moral boost, I would say.
Wow. So you talk about it with like that it's got a, nice package around it and a bow and it's this, and I'm sure at the time it was I'm assuming it was really hard. What pushed you through that? Like on those rough days when you didn't have anything to eat? And what caused you to keep moving forward?
Honestly, just survival mode. I think I have a really strong sense of my own ability to survive. And, when you're very hungry and it's been, 24 hours since you've last eaten, you go in and you do work until you figure something out. And I've always been able to figure things out online. I got my first laptop when I was 12 years old and kind of grew up in different scenarios and environments that really helped me learn how to use a laptop and how to use the internet and how to find opportunities online. And just kind of consistently throughout my life, I had found opportunities to make money online. And so I knew for a fact that if I worked enough hours and I worked hard enough, I would come across an opportunity and convert on it to make some amount of money to then be able to buy our dogs food, to have a little bit of money, for ourselves, and to slowly build something else up. So I just really have always believed in myself, I would say.
That's awesome. So I'm just trying to get an accurate picture here. So, like for me, if I ended up homeless, I'd probably camp out near the closest McDonald's or Burger King and try to get a job
Yep.
there, and get a few hours and try to get food coming in. For you, if I'm hearing you right, and maybe I'm leaving something out, for you it was no, I'm not going to go do that. I'm going to go into the school library, go online, and try to generate some money there. Is that what happened?
Absolutely, yes. And I think
Wild.
that also really speaks to, I would say, my entrepreneurial side is that the idea of going to work at a Burger King or a McDonald's was worse than being homeless and hungry to me. Literally, where that mental boredom to me was the worst thing I could possibly imagine. And I had worked in high school at a veterinary clinic, which kind of my whole life until I went to college and realized that I didn't want to do 10, 12 years of school before I got to be a veterinarian. I thought my whole life that's what I was going to do. I was certain of it. And so I went to go work at a vet clinic and realized how bored I was all the time, just kind of cleaning things and dealing with the dogs without any problem solving. And so that's what really pushed me, I would say, to be in that situation where I refused to get a regular job because I wouldn't have, like, I was already so unhappy in the situation of being homeless and hungry. To add more unhappiness to that was not something I could imagine.
Wow. You know what? This is reinforcing something that I was taught when I was being educated in the world of journalism. Back when I spent 20 years in the media business, and one of my mentors in that business, he said to us, the class that he was teaching, he said, all journalism really is the media. What you do is everybody's got a story, and the really good journalists or the really good storytellers are the people that know how to ask questions to get people to tell their story because everybody's got an interesting story. You're proving that for sure, Maayan. I want to again. I want to get to TikTok in a second, but I've got to ask one additional question on the story that's so compelling that you're sharing with us, and that is for those of us who, the audience for this podcast, Maayan, is people who are managers, they're executives, they own companies, white collar, if you will, professionals. And so for those of us who've never been through something like you just described, what don't we know?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really great question. I would say it's hard to imagine the real short-term survival thinking that someone who has nothing has. there is no thought about next week, let alone next month or next year. There are most of your thoughts, I'd say 80+% of your thinking is consumed around, where am I going to sleep tonight where the cops aren't going to come? How am I going to get food because I'm hungry? And how do I even spend my time? So this wasn't the only period in my life where I spent some time being homeless. We also lived out of a rooftop tent on one of our trucks for a couple months in a summer, as well as out of a conversion van. And in all of those scenarios, it's, what do you do with all this time that you have and you can't be inside your vehicle because it's gotten really hot now? You also don't have necessarily a lot of money to spend on your gas, and gas becomes really, really expensive compared to everything else you imagine in your life. So it's really just a day-to-day balance of, how do I make some money to take care of my basic, needs and necessities? And how do I exist in a way where I'm allowed to exist? So even to the fact of, we did used to go into McDonald's a lot, and Starbucks, but I can't hang out there 8 hours. I've got maybe
Right.
3 to 4 hours max. And then what do I do? So it's just really an immense amount of right now survival thinking.
Yeah, I think another lesson that your message, just who you are, screams out, and you mentioned it a few minutes ago, is kind of having the pride stripped away from you. Where I met you and became introduced to you was on LinkedIn, and I was go before our time together today. I was looking through some of your posts, your recent posts. They are so authentic. I mean, one of them was an image of you with one of your former bosses in the background. You talked about how you totally screwed up
Yeah.
that relationship. And then there was a picture of you homeless, I think like at a campfire.
Yeah.
Um, and you just like that I think is so powerful, how vulnerable you are and how you're scrappy, right? You're willing to, here's who I am and here's what I'm trying to do. I think there's lessons for a lot of us that maybe aren't good at being as authentic and having as little pride as you do.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I think, one of the things that has really driven me towards success, especially in the past year, has been coming to terms with the fact, just really truly in my heart, around that people are good. And that shame is probably, and guilt are probably two of the worst things that can damage a person's ability to be successful. And that if you have good intentions and you make effort and take action towards those good intentions, it is okay that you messed up. It's okay to make mistakes. In fact, that's what makes you human. And that's what makes you relatable. That's what makes you powerful towards helping other people who are assuredly in the same circumstances that you once were in.
Right, right. Awesome. Okay, I could talk about all that stuff for like another hour, but we gotta get to TikTok for a few minutes. And the reason that I wanted you to come on talking about this is, one, you built I think it's over 2 million followers, right, on the
Yeah.
platform. Plus, you're part of what you do for a living is helping organizations, individuals, companies in that space. So we were talking before we started recording that I don't think there are many people who are listening or watching this podcast that are super interested in building their brand on TikTok. There are
Right.
probably a few, but what I wanted was more of, for those of us that hear about it, and it's been in the news a ton lately for reasons
Yes.
we'll get to in a minute, but we've got kids that are on TikTok. We've got employees, people that we're hiring or that are on our teams that are on TikTok. Can you just spend a few minutes? Well, let's start with just what the crud is TikTok, and how does it differ from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those that we might be more familiar with?
Absolutely. So I would describe it first almost as a video streaming app, and then second as a social media app. So I think, social media can be a lot of different things, and really how it differs mainly is that it's all video and very short video. So we're talking 8 to 15 seconds on average for each of these videos. And they're full screen vertical, which plays really interestingly into psychological dynamics of, eye movement, of how you kind of get put into a subconscious state of viewing that you really don't experience in other apps where the video isn't taking up the entire screen. So people will spend, hours and hours on TikTok, and you'll hear people saying they got sucked in, or they get, pulled into this black hole of TikTok videos. One, because your brain will do something where it goes, okay, one more video. And because that video is so short, it goes, well, what's one more?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
what's one more video? The other thing it has that's really different is a variable reward built into its algorithm. So the same way that the lottery works or scratch tickets work, where it rewards you once out of every 5 or 10 or 3 kind of plays, so does TikTok. It does not show you exactly what you want every single time. Otherwise, you would get
Interesting.
used to it and you would get bored. The same way
Hmm.
that you'd get bored with delicious, amazing food if you ate it every single meal. The way you'd get bored with anything else if it was all the time. So what it does is it'll show you every 3 to 10 videos something it knows you don't like, and you'll be like,
That's so
oh, I don't want to
interesting.
see that. Let me see what's next. You'll be like, oh, there's a good one. Awesome. And it
Oh,
kind
so
of
it does that on purpose, not to attract you to that content, but to make you
right.
appreciate the other content more.
Yes,
Wow,
absolutely.
that's interesting. Okay. So interesting. Okay, so let's one of the questions that I wanted to ask you about is this one. As a parent, or yeah, probably mostly as a parent, what concerns should I have about my kids or other people being on that app a
Absolutely.
lot?
Yeah, I think every parent should be aware of and concerned that there is a lot of, let's say, sexually driven content, even if it's not sexual directly in nature, that it's, half dressed, men and women kind of like showing off their stuff. And
Gotcha.
depending on the age of your kids, that's probably not what you want them spending hours and hours looking at and just directly watching, women in bikinis or, men with their shirts off. So that's one thing on all social media platforms to be aware of, and certainly that's true of TikTok as well. The other thing I would say is just in general, how much time are they spending watching videos versus creating videos? I think creating videos is a wonderful skill and exercise that can be very beneficial to kids and help them develop their sense of creativity, their ability to use technology. But if they're just consuming content and watching hours and hours of videos, that's probably not the best use of their time in general.
Yeah, the way you just described makes makes me not want to have any of my kids on that platform. Um, so is that realistic, or is that? I mean, do you understand that
Yeah,
thinking?
no, so I think every parent's going to have different parenting
Right.
approaches. I think,
Sure.
and it's something I think about a lot as me and my husband kind of prepare to have our own kids, and what our strategy is going to be around technology in general, or TV time, or phone time. So I think it's always really good to limit your kids' time that's being spent on any of those items. But I do think there is a huge potential benefit to your kids using TikTok in terms of helping them develop their creativity, their sense of imagination, and then the pairing with that though is make sure that they're applying that. It's one thing to watch content. Let's say there's a huge art category on TikTok, which I'm a part of. I create glass blowing videos. So having your kids watch different art videos and get ideas about how they might draw different pictures, or how they might paint, I think that's wonderful if they're then going to do that. If they're just consuming the content, there's probably still some amount of benefit, but not nearly as much as if it's being used as a way for them to generate new ideas that they're then going to try out themselves.
Gotcha. What else, in just the couple minutes we've got left, what else should people like us, people who are professionals, they're leaders inside an organization, maybe they don't spend a ton of time on a TikTok, they're not interested in it that interested in it. What should we know about it from a distance? Anything else that I haven't asked you about, Maayan?
I would say, even if you're not going to be on TikTok or using it or watching it, it is good to understand that part of its popularity and part of why it is so powerful is it's one of the best market research tools that has ever existed for
Hmm.
free, in terms of being able to look into the psychology of your potential customers, to look into the psychology of a general market that you are marketing and targeting towards. Because not only can you look and see why is this video in this category, content category, why is it doing so much better than all these other seemingly very similar videos? And so it allows you to do a really amazing job of comparative analysis to start hypothesizing and determining why certain elements connect with certain audience, whether those are visual elements, whether they're emotional elements, like you watched a video and you notice, oh, it really made me feel this way, and maybe that's why this video did so well. There's never been a tool like that before that people could use for free.
Awesome. That's great insight. One last question, perhaps. As I'm hearing you speak about TikTok and what's the attraction to it and why everything you just said in the last few minutes, the question that comes to my mind, and maybe it's just my weird curiosity, is I want to take you back to where we started the interview. How long ago, Maayan, were you homeless?
So the last time that I was homeless was at least 7 years ago.
Okay.
About 7 years ago.
Okay, and you've built you've got your business going and you're helping people. The reason I ask that, if in case you're wondering, is I think having people like you on, I think asking people questions about their background and their story, one thing that it really helps me with, and maybe it does for our listeners and viewers as well, is break down stereotypes. And
yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Just listening to you talk about that, I think, wow. How did somebody that smart, that full of energy, that everything that you embody? I think, man, how did somebody like that end up in such a rough spot? Maybe I need to have more grace. Maybe I need to have more understanding and seek to help out more people who maybe are down on their luck and be a little less judgmental. Maybe that's just me that's thinking it, but I wanted to say it as well. Okay, so for those that want to connect with you, why don't you talk a little bit about as we wrap up, the business part of what you do and how some folks who are listening might be able to tap into your expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. So through really use of LinkedIn and connecting with many other business professionals in various fields, I've really come to realize where my unique gifts and values both stem from and apply to. So what I do now is I help out other businesses, other brands, also personalities or speakers, authors, really almost anyone work on what I call communication flow. Everything I've ever done in the online space stems down and can be broken down into communication, including TikTok. I mean, posting a video on TikTok is just a form of communicating with a vast audience. And so I really help brands and businesses understand how their communications that they're currently using are being perceived and recepted by their audience, and how to optimize and tweak them to connect better with people. And the reason that I am very good at that, and I would say uniquely good, or uniquely qualified, is not only have I started up several of my other businesses, of my own businesses from complete scratch, completely bootstrapping them, using social media and digital communication to make them successful. And all of them have done 6 figures in sales in the first year. Even when I started out homeless, and that's when I started my first business, but also through other experiences, like I played basketball growing up and had an amazing coach. The coach I had is in the Washington State Women's Hall of Fame. Learned an incredible amount about team dynamics, about work ethic, grit, coupled with reading my whole childhood, really in a fiction sense, and developing a huge sense of imagination, and then also that communication style and being able to understand other people communicate with different words and how powerful that words can be, and even tweaking one word within your communication can really drive an entirely different connection with your audience.
Right. And whether you're marketing an organization, a product, yourself, or whether you're just trying to advance your career, I mean, and position yourself internally or in a marketplace, my belief is that communication is huge. Your ability to message well, regardless of who that is, the customer, a boss, an employee that you so that's I love that you talk about it as communication rather than marketing, because I think marketing would pigeonhole you in a way that wouldn't be appropriate. Okay, so if I'm interested in that, how do I get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. Best way probably right now is through either LinkedIn or just send me a direct email. My email is monkeyboyarts@gmail.com. I've got a couple other emails, but I think that's the easiest one to remember, honestly. I like that. And that's the name of my personal kind of glass blowing brand, is Monkey Boy Art. So that's where that
Gotcha.
comes from.
I wouldn't expect anything less than an email address like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Maayan, thank you so much for your vulnerability, for your story, being willing to share it, and appreciate you being on.
Thank you so much.